All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we are with Amit Aggarwal. Amit, as a seasoned technologist and leader, he co-founded the Yes after 2 decades of experience, which includes time at 3 of the early search pioneers, Google, Bing, and Inktomi. He also worked at Groupon, both before and immediately after its IPO, and Bloomreach, where he spent 4 years as CTO and VP of engineering. At Groupon, Amit powered its hypergrowth by leading teams on personalization, search, and targeting. He was then recruited to run engineering at Bloomreach, which is a leader at the intersection of machine learning and enterprise software. Amit brings deep technical experience and engineering leadership to the Yes, where the team is rewriting the architecture of e-commerce, leveraging the latest in search and machine learning technologies. One interesting fact, the Yes has raised $30 million in its pre-launch from folks such as NEA, Comcast, Bing as well. So they received the vote of confidence on that end. And one other interesting thing is the launch was announced in Vogue, which was very interesting. I think I came across that article first when I was learning about you also. Thanks, Amit, for joining us. We appreciate you taking some time to speak with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right, awesome. So I want to kind of get started in talking about the early days and really around the founder story. So I understand your co-founder, Julie Bornstein, was COO at Stitch Fix. How did this dynamic duo come together?
Yeah. So as you mentioned in the introduction, I was at Bloomreach, where I was CTO and VP of engineering, and Bloomreach was generally in the space of what's called a digital experience platform. So we're building the technology and the platform to help our customers build great personalized and relevant experiences for their customers by leveraging data and machine learning. And so I left Bloomreach about 2.5 years back. I wanted to start a company, and so I was at a venture firm called Bain Capital Ventures as a EIR, and I was trying out various ideas, really kind of trying to learn more about the latest trends in technology, trying to meet potential co-founders. And Julie had left Stitch Fix, where she was COO at the same time, roughly at the same time. She was also looking to find a co-founder. And, as luck would have it, we got connected through multiple VCs, and we started talking about this general space. Julie had a specific idea. She'd been in retail throughout her career. I'd been kind of connected to retail and search and personalization in various ways. I used to be at a Groupon. I worked with a lot of retailers who were customers for Bloomreach. And so we both come from the same kind of background, but with different contexts and different points of view. So she had run e-commerce business for Nordstrom, and she was obviously at Stitch Fix. She had a very specific idea around really changing the e-commerce experience by using AI and machine learning. As we got started talking about this general space, I was convinced that there's a huge opportunity, both from a business perspective as well as the opportunity to build a much better consumer experience by leveraging technology. So we talked about the general idea as well as kind of working together for four or 5 months, and then decided that this was a big enough opportunity and that we were uniquely positioned to build a team to execute on that opportunity. And that's when we started the company.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so in thinking about your customer base, what is the core problem that you all focused on solving?
Yeah. So we are building a B2C company, which means that our customers are the end users of the product. So it's users who will come to our app and shop. And so the central thesis and the core problem that we're trying to solve is that we believe that the current e-commerce landscape is super basic with a one-size-fits-all model, which makes it really overwhelming for the customer. And so the customer experience, if you think about it, is one size fits all, and also very importantly, it's a very static experience. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is that, if you and I go to an e-commerce experience, we pretty much see the same thing. There might be minor differences, but at a core level, it's the same experience that we see, and that experience is not adjusting to our preferences or the feedback that we're giving to that system. And so we believe that that's a core problem that hasn't been solved for e-commerce. And if you look at other verticals, whether if, for example, if you look at music or news, those experiences around music and news are much more dynamic and much more personalized. And so, the problem that we're trying to solve is sort of bring that same kind of dynamic experience to e-commerce. So the idea is how can we bring the same level of personalization and a dynamic adaptability to e-commerce. That's sort of the core problem that we're trying to solve.
Right. So essentially what you're saying here is if I'm, as a consumer, I decide, hey, listen, I want to go buy a new jumpsuit, right? A new suit to work out in. Essentially, I'm going to a website where I have to scroll through, okay, first I got to click menswear. Then I've got to click, what kind of sportswear. And then I've got to find my size, right, before I can actually look at the specific things that might fit, what my preference is. Whereas you guys are taking the other approach and saying, we're going to understand your preferences up front and then suggest certain types of clothing or whatever it may be. And so in that way, it's a personalized experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good way to put it. And if you think about that paradigm of how you search for that jumpsuit today, that basic paradigm hasn't changed in the last 20 years of e-commerce. What our vision is that, in the world of online e-commerce, you should have your own store. And if we have 1 million customers, we will have 1 million different stores powered by technology. And so in the world of online, there's no reason that your store and my store is the same. We can build a unique store for you that just has the inventory that you would like. It has the sizes that would fit you. And so there's no reason for you to go through all of this inventory that you wouldn't like or wouldn't fit you. Awesome. And so that's kind of the fundamental difference, which is today's paradigm is there's a single store for everyone, which actually is a good paradigm for offline stores because it's so expensive to build a store. But in the world of online, we believe that technology makes it really easy and cheap to build a new store. And so you can build the technology where your store is completely different from my store.
Awesome. So the idea here is that, I essentially, when I walk into a store, everything around me is something that, whether it's shoes, whether it's jeans, but they're all different types of that particular thing that you think that I would be interested in, or that my preferences say that I might be interested in.
Absolutely, it's something that you would like, something that fits you, that fits your aesthetic, that fits your style, that fits your price point, and even more importantly than that, it's a store that's built around you and it's learning from you. So when you go looking for that jumpsuit, not only are we showing you the things that you would like, but as you're providing feedback, we're kind of understanding what you want in that moment, and we're adjusting the store to your needs at the moment. Just like in a similar way that if you were to go to a real store and were to talk to a person, that person would kind of adjust what they're showing you based on what the feedback they're giving. And that experience, that dynamic experience, doesn't exist today. And so not only are we building a store that's really highly personalized to you, but it's also dynamic and it's learning from you.
Awesome. And so is it also taking suggestions from friends or potentially people who are like me, or is it specifically based on my needs or my wants?
Yeah, long term, obviously there's a big social component to this. So it's taking suggestions not only from you, but people like you who have a similar style. And so, yeah, that's part of the roadmap of the product, and which is why we think it's such a powerful idea.
Okay. And what does it look like to actually engage? I mean, is this all mobile? Are you able to use this on the desktop as well? And then what does it look like? The UI, what's it like to actually engage with the technology?
So today it's mobile only. So we started with mobile, and so we have an iOS app. Eventually, on the roadmap, we do have a website and a Android experience as well. But the reason we want to start with mobile is we believe that's where a lot of the shopping is moving, and a lot of consumers are moving to mobile. And we believe that if you build a great experience for mobile and the constraints around it it'll be easier for us to build a full-blown website experience. So that's why we started with it, but we're going to eventually add other platforms. Now, with respect to the experience is a user comes in and they answer certain questions about their style, about their price point, about the brands they love, and these are kind of questions. They answer these questions in the form of a quiz, and those are data points that help us really build the initial store for that user. So based on these data points, which are, there's been a lot of research that we've done around what are the right data points to ask the user and in what way. So there's a lot of time that we've spent on that. Based on the answers to those questions, we build the initial store for the user. But one of the most important parts of the product is that we're continuously getting feedback from the user. So that initial quiz that they answer is important, but and now when they see their store, they can actually very easily, in a simple and a very intuitive and a very engaging way, give us yes/no feedback on every product. And that yes/no feedback feeds into our machine learning algorithms that are constantly learning about your evolving preferences. And even if we get some, like the algorithms are never going to be perfect, right, but as long as we're getting feedback from the user and adapting to that feedback, we'll get better over time. So the inbuilt into the product is this idea of yesing and knowing a product in a really engaging, gamified way, which helps the algorithm learn.
Great. And I think that within that explanation, you kind of identified the difference between, what you could do with static code, right, with in traditional software development versus, what you are able to do because you have machine learning capabilities, right? So, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but, with static code, you could really have someone go through a series of yeses and nos, and then based on those yeses and nos, you could just send an existing catalog that fit those yeses and nos. But with the machine learning, you're able to, yes, you send the yeses and nos, but over time, right, you can continue learning without having to hop back in and write new code in order for you to deliver the suggestions that are personalized to that individual.
Exactly, that's a great point. And what the machine learning really helps us is we're getting a stream of data from users, and that data is very different for different users. So you can yes and no any product. New products are coming online all the time, and the system adapts to it. We don't have to write new code as the inventory changes or new styles emerge. Right. What the machine learning helps us do is really adapt as we get new data for users and dynamically create the store for every user all the time. And so, really, if you think about machine learning versus static code, what machine learning really allows us to do is a few different things. One, it helps us scale. While humans can pick the products for one user, it's really hard for humans to scale to lots of users. It's also very hard for humans to scale to lots and lots of products. So our vision is that eventually we'll have a large number of brands and really large number of products on our platform. And, it's hard for humans to scale to that number of products. The other thing that machine learning really helps us do, and something that we've observed over time, is that it can actually generalize human knowledge. So we believe human knowledge and domain knowledge is super important to train the algorithm. So, humans can do a great job of understanding style and what represents style and so on. Machines don't know that. They have to be taught. But once you teach them, machines are really good at finding some hidden patterns and finding some hidden styles. So, for example, just to give you an example, one of the problems that we solve is we take all the products in the inventory and we find clusters of styles in them. And while humans can do that, one, it doesn't scale, but we also learned that machines will sometimes find these hidden insights that humans can't.
Interesting. So I guess what you're saying here is, maybe someone goes in and they make they say yes or no to specific styles, but within that, maybe the machine learning recognizes that there's a particular feature that really is unique to that person that, they didn't necessarily say yes or no to it, but they continue to look at these certain types of styles. So maybe it's a certain type of suit coat that accentuates my shoulders, right? And the machine learning recognizes that, and then you're able to incorporate that into new suggestions.
Exactly. Absolutely. And, that's a great example, but there's tons and tons of examples like that. For example, that a user doesn't like colorful clothes, or kind of, the machine would learn that over time, or, certain styles or certain price ranges that the user likes or doesn't like.
Awesome. And, in order to train your models, right, you need a ton of data. Where did you get the initial data, right, to be able to make those inferences? Yeah,
there's two types of data that we want. So, there's really two places at a really high level that we apply machine learning. One is we apply machine learning, particularly NLP and computer vision, to get a deep understanding of products. So given a product, we want to understand everything about the product. So today we actually extract 500 plus different attributes for every product that we get. And so what we're doing there is we're parsing the descriptions using NLP. We're using computer vision to look at the images and extract data about every product. And then what we also do is for every product, we kind of do a DNA mapping of the style of the product. So we encapsulate the style of the product of every product using computer vision. And so the way we collect data for that is, number one, there's a lot of data that you can crawl from the web, and you can get products, and you can get information about products, and that
publicly available data
that serves as a seed set for your learning. Right. And then we obviously put in a lot of human expertise into the process, because your algorithm and machine learning is only as good as the data you put into it. And so one of our differentiating things about our technology is that our technology is built on machine learning and machine learning engineers working very closely with fashion experts. So we actually have a team of fashion experts that we initially built. That's one of the differences between us and traditional, other companies, is we created, starting off, we created a multifunctional team that had fashion experts and machine learning experts working together. So we kind of use their expertise to clean up the data. We scale it out by getting more human judgments, and that kind of feeds into the core machine learning algorithm around understanding products. The other place that we use machine learning is creating a model for every user. So as we get feedback from users as to what they like and not like, we want to create a machine learning model for each user. There we're kind of obviously dependent on user data. And so earlier on as we were building the technology, we always had a set of beta users who were testing the product. And we also had a lot of internal users who were testing the product. And so that's kind of how we seeded the algorithm. And that's an area where we're constantly, the more users we have, the better those algorithms get.
Okay, yeah, it's very helpful, very helpful. And so I think that was a very helpful walkthrough between how you're, the problem you're solving, and then how machine learning is kind of feeding you some, additional benefits, some additional firepower. I want to go back. I mentioned that you all launched, and was this May? Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. How has, now in terms of, thinking through how you reach those end customers, what's been the strategy in terms of getting in front of those initial users?
Yeah. So, as I said, we've had, again, we have two customers. We have end users who are buying the products and, shopping on the app. And then we also have our brand partners who are really, really essential for the platform. So these are brands that we partner with who actually put their inventory on the platform that we can build a store around. And so, with respect to the users, we've always had a small set of beta users, mainly through referral and our networks. Okay. And these are kind of early adopters of the product that have helped us build the product and really, refine the algorithms behind the product. And so we've been testing the product for more than a year with those users. And since we've launched, we've gotten a lot of good traction with users as we've kind of, you talked about the Woke article, these
Yeah,
are all of
that's
these
good
mentioned.
marketing. They have a
Good.
pretty nice fan base, huh?
Right. They have a pretty nice fan base. So we've gotten a lot of user adoption based on the press that we've had. And so we're also, there's a few other things that obviously we're going to do more marketing over time. And then there's some social features that we're kind of playing around with in the product, where we can, for example, users on the app can invite other users, their friends, to kind of help them with shopping or look at how they're interacting with the product. So we believe it's going to be a really powerful tool for us to acquire more users. So, but in reality, I think we're going to do a number of different things. We're going to do paid marketing over time. The press and is going to help. And then we are very enthusiastic about building social features into the product.
Okay. Yeah, that actually seems very interesting, just considering, how many folks like to talk about the different types of fashion that they like, right? And how big, how much conversation goes around that particular space. And thinking about your partners, right? The brands that come onto the platform, what was it like onboarding those brands? Did those come from past relationships as well, or?
Yeah. Well, I think brands are super important for us. Obviously, when we started the company, as I said, one of the key value propositions was, how do we make the consumer's life easier? Today, it's overwhelming. How can we build this dynamic, personalized store for them? But we also had a big commitment to building a product that was very brand friendly. So one of our core principles for the company is we want to build a product which is friendly to the brands, which is, we're going to work with the brands to help them succeed. They're our partners. As the product becomes successful, we want the brands to be successful as well. So a lot of things that we've done in the product are really about helping the brand. So for example, one of the things that we do is that when we integrate a new brand, the brand doesn't have to do much work. All of it is automated. Most of the work is really streamlined because we realize how valuable resources are for the brand as well. And so the initial set of brands that we had was partly based on relationships and just kind of this value proposition that brands really resonated with, which is building this really next generation tech-forward, brand-friendly platform that leverages AI and machine learning. And as we, earlier on in the company's life cycle, we built a prototype showing the vision of where we wanted the product to go. And as we talked to brands, they really resonated with that vision of where we wanted the consumer experience to go. Awesome. So that helped us, partner with a lot of these brands.
Awesome. And so I imagine kind of some of those initial conversations, your partner in the business, right, has a long history in e-commerce or in that fashion space, right? So is able to kind of leverage some of those relationships.
Of course, yeah. Julie is extremely well connected. We also hired our SVP of brand partnerships, Lisa, who has a lot of experience in the fashion space, working with brands, and has a lot of good connections with brands. So she and her team really helped. And so it was obviously, a big part of this was Julie and Lisa's connections, but also kind of the unique value proposition of the product.
Yeah. No, I think one of the interesting things is, when you have conversations with a lot of startups, a lot of that initial traction comes from people who already respect you, who already, appreciate you you and your team, right, as a subject matter expert. So you get those first few case studies where you can show some success and then go out to the broader market who aren't necessarily in or around your existing circle. So I think that's interesting. Now, are the partners, is there some way that they're broadcasting, where their end customers can find you? So are they saying, find us on the Yes app, right? Or, as something in their website or something like that?
Yeah, yes. You're talking about joint marketing, and some of them do, and so do we. Like on our Instagram channel, You'll see us promoting the brands that we have, and talking about the brands and the diversity of brands that we carry. And the same thing is true for some of the brands that we partner with. So there's actually lots of opportunities for us to do more there. I mean, the way we are unique is that, the way we believe that this platform is built in a way that is really friendly to the brand's interests, and there's going to be lots of opportunities for brands and us to work together in kind of attracting customers.
Right. And again, the brands are speaking directly to, because of what you all are providing, those brands are speaking and having their products on display to people who are directly interested. And then it sounds like, there's opportunity there for lesser known brands to also get in front of customers as well.
Absolutely. If you think about the idea of a store built around a user, the promise of that is kind of bringing the brands that you would like, new ones, emerging ones, that match your style and your price point and your aesthetic to you. And that's kind of the real opportunity. So the way we think about our platform is, over time we'll have a lot of brands, a lot of selection, and then we can bring the right brands to the right users based on personalization. That's where it becomes really interesting and powerful. So there's clearly an opportunity to help new brands and emerging brands reach customers on the platform.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to kind of change directions here and talk about we'll talk about talent, especially specifically the AI talent on the team. It sounds like you came with the AI chops from the beginning, so would love to hear about the initial build. Were you involved in kind of the heavy lifting at first, and then how did you think about adding on talent? What skill sets did you key in on when you added on new talent? Was it sector focused in terms of industry? And I'm thinking about the data science, machine learning engineers.
Yeah. I think when we started the company, we're very clear about leveraging AI and machine learning to really change the user experience. There's a few other things when we started. We asked ourselves the question, how are we going to do things differently? A lot of people have talked about this for a while. And so one of the key questions you asked as an entrepreneur is, what is different about what we're doing? How are we going to succeed where others have not succeeded? And so there's a few different things that we realized. One is that in order to succeed at this problem, you really needed to have deep domain expertise. And so the reason we started in a vertical fashion is because you can only solve this problem if you deeply understand the vertical. A lot of companies that have tried to solve the problem of personalization have gone fairly broad. And while you can do a little bit, you can't go deep enough. So for example, if you think about fashion, you not only need to understand style, you need to understand price point, you need to understand size and fit. Those are very fashion specific problems in some ways. So it was very clear to us that we needed to build a team that was cross-functional, that brought domain expertise with machine learning experience. Number two, it was clear to us that there was a lot of interesting data hidden in images that was not being leveraged today. So we knew that computer vision is going to be a key part of how we build the technology stack. Number three, we believe that you actually have to bring machine learning and make it work very well with the user interface. In other words, you can't treat machine learning as a black box and hope it magically comes with the right answer every time. What you really need to do is merge the machine learning with the user experience and build a great seamless experience. And so the recommendations feed into the user experience, but you also need the feedback flowing back to the algorithm. You can't have a one-way street from the algorithm to the user experience, but not a great way of providing feedback back to the algorithm. So we knew that we needed to kind of create that experience and machine learning working together. And number four, we obviously needed great data. Like you can't build a machine learning based algorithm without great data.
Right.
And so, when you look at all of those things, we needed fashion expertise, we needed computer vision expertise, we needed UI, and we needed kind of data. And that's one of the things why we believe that it was a really hard problem to solve. And that was not easy to replicate or copy. And that's one of the things you want to do as a startup is you want to solve hard problems that are not easy to replicate. And so the way we built the team initially is we started on all of these things independently. So we brought together a cross-functional team that had fashion and retail expertise. And we hired two great people there who helped us build the taxonomy. We hired a search expert who built search technology before. We hired a machine learning engineer to build some of the models. And that's how kind of we started that team. But in parallel, we also started working on the app experience so that we could test the algorithms with real users. And then we also started working on a ingestion team that had engineers who were working on getting data from different sources so that we could train the algorithms. And so we started all of these 3 or 4 efforts in parallel, and all of these fed into each other. So as our data became better, the algorithms became better, which fed into the UI. And so we're constantly iterating on all of these things in parallel, and all of them fed each other. So as the UI got better, we got better data into the algorithm. As the algorithm get better, user engagement got better. And then obviously all of this was dependent on the taxonomy in the data coming from the catalog.
Yeah, very interesting that you actually had such a focus on specifically the UI piece. It's interesting. You can have the best technology in the world. You can have the best algorithms, the best data, but ultimately, if the UI is bad, nothing's going to work out. So maybe it's can you shed some light onto kind of how that became so important? Because and perhaps that's something that you thought of because it was more of a consumer-facing app, right? But I just find it very interesting that, yes, all of these other elements related to AI are important, but we really needed to be focused on the user experience and UI.
Yeah, well, I think it's especially important for a consumer, as you said, but I think across the board it's important, whether you're building a product for enterprise where you're helping someone in the financial sector take decisions. I think UI is just as important as the AI behind it. And so, I think that was kind of an early realization because, as you said, you can have the best AI, but if you don't reflect that AI in the user experience in the right way, consumers won't react to it. As an example, one of the learnings I had at my previous experiences is explaining to the user why you're showing them something is just as important as showing them the right thing. In other words, if you show a user the right jumpsuit that without telling them why you picked it, it is not as effective as if you pick the right jumpsuit and tell them why you picked it. Or vice versa, even if you are unable to pick the right jumpsuit, if you pick the wrong one, but you tell the user why you thought that was a good choice, they're forgiving. The user is forgiving. And so, it was very clear that user experience is the right thing. And, kind of as we build the product, that was validated. And so I'll give you a small example. Well, earlier on, as we build the product, one of the questions we're trying to answer is, how do we ask a user about their style? Well, you could ask them a question and you can say, what's your style? The problem with that is that most users don't know how to put it in words. Even if they know how to put it in words, not every user's answer will be consistent. So what one user means by a certain word is different from what another user means. And so we said, okay, maybe the right way is to show them images of products. And so, then they can look at the image and decide whether they like the style or not. And that's kind of more interesting. But even there, it's not clear how the user decides what part of the image they're focusing on. And so if you take that example, eventually we came up with a solution that we've kind of patented. But if you think about this example, it shows you how closely tied the machine learning is to the UI. In other words, what you feed into the algorithm is really, you really have to understand the user interface to feed in the right thing so that you get the right data from the users.
Okay. Awesome. And last question here. This is kind of a hallmark question. If you could go back, you went back to day one, knowing everything that you know now, what would your first 90 days look like?
It's a great question. I think one learning is that these problems take longer than you think they take because they're really, really hard problems. And so what you initially estimate is how long it'll take. It always takes longer than that. I think if I were to revisit the first 90 days, I don't think we would do anything differently in the way we solve the problems that we picked or the way we built the team. I think we have a great team. I would work with that team again in a heartbeat. I think what I would change is maybe kind of narrowing down the focus a little bit more and not try to solve everything. When you're starting a company, you want to solve everything and make a great product on every aspect. What I would do differently is maybe pick a smaller number of problems and go deeper in them.
Okay.
And so the thing that I would change for the first 90 days is more focus.
Okay. And is this in terms of focus on, when you say problems, I guess, where were you originally and where were you? Because there's a lot of things you could narrow your focus on. So I'm curious, in what context do you?
Yeah, what I mean by that is, for example, if you think about personalization or just applying machine learning, you could focus on style and you can focus on size and you can focus on price personalization. Within style, you can focus on lots of different ways and different ways of doing style personalization. I would pick maybe instead of picking everything, I would say, okay, we're going to focus on style. We're going to spend the first 90 days really focusing on style, and then we'll go to price and other aspects of personalization. But kind of just more focus. It doesn't mean that we won't solve the other problems. I think we have to solve all the problems to make it a great consumer experience, and it'll take, it's not a 1 year journey, it's a multi-year journey. But sometimes kind of picking a problem and going deep into it, because these problems are so hard, is the right approach. I mean, if it was an easier problem, then you could spread yourself thin and go broad. But these problems, each of these problems is very deep and requires a lot of thought and kind of a lot of data and a lot of fine tuning and lots of iteration. And so, that's where focus helps.
Yeah. And I think really quickly here, one of the things you mentioned that was interesting is the time that it takes, right? And I think for a lot of people, it's, with software, once you finish it, it's kind of plug and play. But when you have AI and machine learning, the process to getting to that deployment or, that end goal takes a little bit longer. So I'm curious from your perspective, what was it that took more time than you expected?
Yeah, I think the thing that is kind of hard about this is that you have, as I said, you have these multiple pieces all working together to build the product. So you have the machine learning, you have the data coming into the system, you have the UI, you have the taxonomy, and there's kind of 4 big independent pieces that have to all come together and work seamlessly, and all of them have to be a reasonable quality. And so when you have that, that's what takes time. So as an example, if your data coming into the system, let's say I'm talking about product catalog data, if the data coming into the system is not clean, your machine learning algorithms are not going to be effective. And so, you build the initial data ingestion, you build the machine learning algorithms, and you realize it's not working well. And so then you have to improve your data ingestion. Well, and then your machine learning algorithms get better. And now you realize, well, your machine learning algorithms need to improve as well. And so you improve that. And so it's a constant kind of, you have these multiple pieces that have to fit in together, and all of them have to get better. And so that's what makes it complicated. The same thing is true for user experience, right? Until your machine learning algorithm and your data is not at a certain level, you actually can't even test with users because you get a false signal. Once they're at that point, you test with users, and then you realize new things, and then you iterate on top of that. And so that process of getting your all of your technology to a certain level, then testing that, then improving it, that feedback loop takes time.
Okay. All right. Very helpful. Well, that's all we have for time, Amit. Thank you again for coming in and educating us and introducing us to the Yes. Very much appreciated.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you.